Hello, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today is Beis Nissan, the Yom Elula Stalkus of the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. So obviously we have to think about this tzaddik and try to learn some lessons. We're holding in Parshas Vayikra. This Shabbos is Parshas Vayikra. We're learning Parshas Vayikra. So what's the connection from Parshas Vayikra to the Rebbe Rashab, Beis Nissan, and in general the month of Nissan? So as usual, before we start the thought of the week, we'll say a pasuk. This is a pasuk from the Rebbe's new kapitel in Mitzvah Hashem. This Yud Aleph Nissan is the Rebbe's birthday. The Rebbe's new kapitel is Kuf Chav Beis. And in Kuf Chav Beis, there's the pasuk which says, Le'man achai v'reyoy adabro no sholim bach. For the sake of my brothers and friends, David HaMelech is saying, for the sake of my brothers and friends, I will now speak of peace for you. So he speaks as a true leader that has in mind the entire country and everyone he's calling Leman achai v'reyoy. The entire nation is my brothers and friends. So, and he says that we should be speaking of peace for you. Everyone should be speaking of peace, projecting peace, brotherhood, love to the fellow man. That's the pasuk. In Parshas Vayikra, in the beginning of Parshas Vayikra, is one of my favorite psukim of the entire Torah. And we come to a concept which you could say is the essence of Judaism. I feel like every week I'm saying that we're going to talk now about the essence of Judaism, but this time I really mean it. And there's a Rashi which is so amazing. So we'll start right away with the pasuk at the beginning of the parsha, the first pasuk, where it says, Vayikra el Moshe, Vayedaber Hashem elov. And Rashi says that what does this mean? Vayikra el Moshe, Hashem calls to Moshe. L'chol dibros, l'chol amiros, l'chol tzivuyim kodma kriya. There was a calling that preceded every statement, every saying, and every command. And this calling is Lashon Chibur, is language of affection, language that indicates affection. And then Rashi continues. And it's brought out on the places, the Abish would say, Moshe, Moshe. And that was how he called out to Moshe, term of endearment, every single communication that was between Hashem and Moshe. So obviously it brings out the awesomeness of a Yid. Moshe represents the ultimate Yid, let's say, and Hashem calls out to the Yid, Moshe, Moshe. Before he talks to him, every single time, first is a term of endearment and a call of love. We're going to get back to it, but first, I want to ask a question which the Rebbe poses in Likutei Sichos Chelik Zayin, Vayikra Gimel. And the Rebbe asks a question about the beginning of the Parsha to the end of the Parsha. In the beginning of the Parsha, as we just mentioned, it seems to emphasize the greatness of a Yid, that Hashem calls out with love to every single Jew, before every communication, before any communication. And at the end of the Parsha, it speaks about Nefesh kisechta u'mala mal b'Hashem. A person will sin and commit a trespass against Hashem, and it's talking about theft. And over here Rashi says something amazing. Why does the pasuk say u'mal mal b'Hashem, u'mal mal b'Hashem, and he commits a trespass against Hashem, when it's something which has been adam l'chaver, between man and man? Why is it considered a sin against God? And then he brings down that because shekol amal in most cases, people borrow or lend or buy and sell only when there's witnesses and a contract. So therefore, when a person will deny it, he will lie. He's going against witnesses and a contract. But someone has a close friend and he asks him to do some safekeeping. He doesn't want anyone else to know about it. Sometimes you want to keep a transaction private. Except for the third party. Who is the third party? Hashem. So therefore, kishu mekachesh b'shlishi shebenayim. So therefore, only Hashem knows. Hashem is the one that knows the truth. So therefore, when you're denying, you're actually going against Hashem because Hashem knows the truth. And here you're lying and you're causing a theft, even though Hashem is the witness. And you asked the other person to keep it private because they don't want others to know it. So you're betraying the person and Hashem, etc. And in general, you could say, and I'm sure the other commentators speak about it, whoever starts up with Bavas Einei Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, every Jew is a part of Hashem. When you start up with another Jew, you're starting up with Hashem. So in other words, the chumreis, the seriousness of the offense at the end of the pasuk, at the end of the parsha, it says Umol b'Hashem. It means that he's rebelling, he's doing something against Hashem himself when he's dishonest, when he's committing fraud or theft to another person. So the beginning of the parsha starts with something very positive, the awesomeness of a Jew, that Hashem loves him. And the end, it talks about when a Jew sins and is rebelling against Hashem. And the last words of the parsha, the Rebbe says that la'ashma vo, we're talking about a person that might do something that will incur guilt. So we're talking about a person that might do something which is guilty. So how does the beginning of the parsha connect with the end? So first let's talk about the beginning, and then we'll explain how that is precisely the concept really and the theme of the end. This Rashi that says Vayikra el Moshe, Rashi says that l'chol dibes and l'chol amidis and l'chol tzivuim kodma kriya. What does kodma mean? It was preceded by a call. The Rebbe explains kodma doesn't only mean in zman, as we say in many places. Preceding doesn't only mean that it came first as time, but kodma means b'mayla. We're talking about something superior, that's completely incomparable. That's something which is in a whole different level. And that's what it means. Over here we see Neshama Shel Yisrael, Machshavton Shel Yisrael, Kodma L'chol Davar. Similar idea. The thoughts of the Jews, Kodma L'chol Davar, precedes everything else. Before we talk about commandments, before we talk about requests, before we talk about any form of communication, the first thing the Jew knows, Ahavti eschem Amar Hashem. Yankel, Meishe, Berel, I love you. So Hashem gives the ultimate affirmation, validation to the Yid before we speak about any obligations and responsibilities. There's an essential bond. And that's what this Rashi teaches us. And that's why it's phenomenal. And that's why I think we spoke about this once before. Why, you could say, Yashlema, the Rebbe mentions in another Sikha, why this is the first thing we teach children. This is the first portion in the Torah which children learn. Why? Because this is the first thing they have to know, that there's an essential bond between a Jew and Hashem. Whether the child realizes it when he learns it now, but it'll come back later to him, that he was taught. The first thing is the super glue, which Judaism is all about, is the underlying bond, the essential connection between a Jew and Hashem. And that's Kodma L'chol Davar. And therefore, I think we mentioned this recently, the famous Tana of the Be'eliyo, which asks, me, Kodem Lemi, who came first, the Jews or Torah? And it says the Jews, because we say, Daber El B'nai Yisrael, Tzav Es B'nai Yisrael. First has to be a B'nai Yisrael, the Jews, the Yidden, and then Hashem can give him a command. And if I remember understanding correctly, in Ha'ara in the Sikha, the Rebbe brings from this Mishnah of Pirkei Avos, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Yudalid, where the Mishnah says that Chavivim Yisrael shenikru bonim l'makom, Yidden are precious, beloved, because they're called the sons of Hashem. And then it says Chavivim Yisrael shenitlem kli chemda, and beloved are the Yidden because a precious article was given to them. So first it says Chavivim Yisrael because they're bonim atam Hashem l'keichem. First we have to have the bonim atam Hashem l'keichem. And then, because they're special, therefore they get the precious gift. It's not the precious gift that makes them special. It's after the bonim atam Hashem l'keichem, then they're given the precious gift. And now, even to take it further, the Baal HaTurim says something phenomenal. Vayikra el Moshe, higdim Moshe LaHashem, kaviyochel ke'echad shemedaber im chaverei Umagdimoi derech Musa. The Baal Turim says the verse mentions Moshe's name before the name of Hashem speaking, as it were, in the manner of a person speaking with his friend, placing him first out of politeness. How awesome is that? The pasuk could have said Hashem's name, and by the way, the Rebbe explains in the Sikha that Vayikra Moshe is the level which is Atzmos. The lo Yisrael is b'shum Moshe, b'shum Shem, b'shum Kais. It's actually the essence of Hashem, so therefore it doesn't say a name. The Vayikra Moshe, the essential bond of essence to essence, the essence of Hashem to the essence of a Jew, is higher than a name of Hashem. A name of Hashem is not the essence. We can't get into that now because we spoke about that many times. So first it says Vayikra Moshe, then Vayidaber Hashem. Okay, we understand, according to Chassidus, why it says Vayidaber Hashem later. But the Baal Turim makes another point which is also awesome. Why does it say Vayikra Moshe? Moshe's name is mentioned first. And he says, like when, two friends greet each other, and one is in a special person, and he wouldn't even think of himself. He's all about the other person. He sees the other person, he smiles broadly, he says, "Was machst du? How are you?" So it's about the other person. He doesn't think about himself anymore. He's totally obsessed and involved with the other person. And that's what the Baal Turim says over here. The Eibishter Kaviyachol. And he says the words, Kaviyachol ke'echad shemedaber im chaverei umagdimoi. He makes the other one come first. The Torah, Kaviyachol, says Moshe's name before Hashem's name. Because this reflects the approach, how Hashem is totally committed, devoted, and given over to the Moshe. And he calls him Moshe. It's about Hashem being totally present for the Moshe. Here I am. So in any case, we see how it's amazing over here that this pasuk Vayikra Moshe is the foundation of Yiddishkeit. Machshavton sheisol kodma l'chol davar. Before everything else, before we talk about religion as observance and duties and responsibilities, first you have to know that there's an Ava Atzmis from the Eibishter to Yidden. And the Alter Rebbe, in his Akdamas HaMalakit, compiles forward what he wrote as Akdama to his book. It's a Hakdamas HaMalakit, so it's also Kodma, it comes before everything else. So there's a famous question, what's going on over here in the Akdamas HaMalakit, and now's not the time to get into it. People had a question, how could a book replace a private audience, face-to-face personal meeting with the Alter Rebbe? And as usual, the genius of the Alter Rebbe, how he addresses this question, is so amazing. I challenge you, take a Tanya and learn this Hakdamas HaMalakit inside. It's life-changing. Anyways, so the beginning of his answer is that this book I wrote different than how you think most books are written. Most books are written that people have an idea, and they think it's a good idea, and then they commit it to paper, and they think it relates to a lot of people. Here the Alter Rebbe says, no, I had you in mind first. Yankel Berel Shmerel from Dokshitz, wherever, Lubavitch, Varshavah, wherever, I had you personally in mind, my chassid, and as I thought of you first, you preceded, then I wrote what I wrote. But wait, there's more. Listen to what he says over here. He says that, this is the answer, I'm speaking of people that know me, all of the fellowship of my followers. And listen to what he says. That there were words of affection have been frequently exchanged. V'gilu lefonai kol talumois libom umoicham ba'avedas Hashem, and who have revealed to me all the secrets of their heart and mind in the service of Hashem. So in my humble opinion, over here the Alter Rebbe is saying the same thing. A lesson in how we relate to our fellow man. Here we're talking about a tzaddik. Tzaddik is the holiest of holies. You could think he's totally spiritual. He's not of this world. He's not aware of the trials and tribulations of mundane life, of the hustle and bustle of Fifth Avenue and Collins Street and Rodeo Drive, or whatever, of your life, of goats and chickens and milk and butter, And what does the Alter Rebbe say when he's describing those people that he had in mind? And how does he define the relationship? Asher hoya dibur shel chibur motze b'neinu. Words of affection were exchanged between us. Exactly like Rashi says over here, kriya shel chibur. Wow. And what does it mean? Hadibur shel chibur motze b'neinu. In my humble interpretation, it means when the Rebbe, then the Chassid met, the first thing the Rebbe would say was machst du? V'ingein di inyonim. How's your wife? How's your children? How's your family? How's your parnasa? How's your health? That's what it means. That comes first. Are you thinking about your fellow man and his needs and his basics? And then we start talking about their spiritual situation. Of course, even the spiritual situation is connected to Avos Yisrael, because for a person to truly have a good life, he has to have meaning and purpose, etc. But on a simple level, first find out how's he doing. And this brings to mind also a famous anecdote that I heard from Rabbi Yoel. I'm going to say one version, but there's a couple of different versions. And that's a similar idea in general, how we relate to the Rebbe. And this is appropriate for the upcoming Yud Aleph Nisan, that Rabbi Yoel said that there were two types of Chassidim. There was a Chassid of Kremenchuk. That was a town and a village where the Chassidim were highly intellectual. They're called Maskilim, deep thinkers. And there was Nevel. Nevel was a city where there's more butchers and water carriers and that idea. So Chassidim used to say, what's the difference between a Chassid of Kremenchuk that was by the Rebbe and came back from the Rebbe, and what's the difference between a Chassid of Nevel that was by the Rebbe and came back to Nevel? So the saying goes that when a Chassid from Kremenchuk came back from the Rebbe, his fellow townspeople, fellow city people would say, "Was given the last divya maschel from the Maimer of the Rebbe Gechazet." What was the last title of the Maimer, the Hasidic discourse that the Rebbe spoke? That was in Kremenchuk. But in Nevel, when the Chassid from Nevel, who was called a Neveler, came back from the Rebbe, all of his townspeople, the city people, would ask him, "Wie fühlt sich dem Rebbe? How's the Rebbe feeling?" So the truth is, we need both. In our relationship with the Rebbe, we have to have an element and a dimension where we're learning his Torah, because that's Chabad Chassidus. For upcoming Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe spoke many times that what he wants for a birthday present is only some things that's related to Torah. So that's the idea of the Kremenchuk. If I see my friend, I should ask him, what was the last Maimer, what was the last Torah discourse that the Rebbe spoke about? I want to hear it. I'm thirsty for his words of Torah. Torah connects me with the tzaddik. It connects me with the Eibishter. But we also speak very, very fondly about those Chassidim. They didn't ask about what's the last Torah. They asked, how's the Rebbe feeling? There's a physical bond of love and affection to the Rebbe, which you could argue, as we're speaking today, that in a way comes first. Just how's the Rebbe feeling? Is there anything I could do to make the Rebbe feel better? Usually it means something spiritual, but it's how you think. Like in physical terms. I miss the Rebbe, I long the Rebbe, I like the Rebbe. I don't only love the Rebbe, I like the Rebbe. I enjoy the Rebbe. Anyways, so it's in more physical terms, but it's similar to what the Alter Rebbe says in Akdam Samalakit, and similar to what it says in this week's Parsha, Vayikra, Kriya Shel Chibur. Now let's go to the end of the Parsha and the connection. What does the end of the Parsha say? It starts off that Nefesh, Kisechta, someone's going to sin, Umal B'Hashem, which seems he's rebelling against Hashem. So the Rebbe points us that that's not the point here. The point is the last pasuk before it says La'ashma Bo, that a person can come to guilt. How does the Parsha end? The last pasuk is really the point of it all. Hakol Hilech Acharachitum. And that is the redemption angle. The Chiper Olav HaKoyen, the Kohen shall provide him atonement, Lifnei Hashem, before Hashem, v'nislach le'al achas mikol asher yaseh la'ashma ba. Whatever the story is, the Kohen will bring atonement. We're talking about bringing the sacrifices to bring atonement for what you did wrong. And the point is, v'chiper olav HaKohen v'nislach loi. He's going to be forgiven. And as the Rebbe emphasizes, so really if we're talking about over here the ultimate, we're talking about Tshuva's doinus lasli kazochies. The person became even more powerful in a healthy way, spiritually, through the thing that he did wrong. How is that connected to what we spoke about before? So this is the whole idea. Tshuva is the highest mitzvah. It says in Chassidus that all the mitzvahs are connected to the level of Ratzon. They reflect the will of Hashem. But Tshuva is connected to the level of Baal Ratzon, the master of his will. I think we spoke about this already a couple of times. What's the difference between Ratzon and Baal Ratzon? Ratzon is a specific will. Do this, do that, put on tefillin, shake a lulav, eat matzah. Those are specific wills of the king of Hashem. When we say Baal Ratzon, that shows on something which is not a specific will, it shows on the master of the will himself. And Chassidus explains that really, what does it mean, master of the will? That he is master over his will. He could say that I, me, the master, I'm not limited by my will. And that's why even if you step out of the program and you did something wrong, I could forgive you. And like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, Chanan hamar b'lisleach. A king that's a mortal king and a limited king, you do something wrong once, okay, I'll let you get away with this time, but don't do it again. You do it again, he said, you're really stretching my mercy. And we said you're not going to do this again. You did it a second time, but I'll be specially nice that even though you did this wrong twice, I'll still forgive you. You do it a third time, forget about it. 3 strikes and you're out. And over here we say about Hashem, Chanan hamar b'lisleach. You could do the same Vayikra Hashem Yerachim 10,000 times, and the Eibishter will still forgive you. Why? Because his love of Knesset Yisrael, Machshavtan sheYisrael Kodmel Chol Davar, even before all the tzivuyim. So therefore, Bonim Atem Hashem Alekeichem, Ben Kach Ben Kach Boneim. So even if you do the wrong thing, he himself is the one who says what his will is. He also says that I'm not limited by my will. I'm not square. Even when someone goes against my will, I will exercise infinite patience, infinite mercy, infinite kindness, and forgive him. And why? Because of the essential connection. So therefore the beginning of the parsha and the end of the parsha are exactly the same thing. Just like the beginning of the parsha, we say there's an essential bond that's koidim l'chol tzivuyim v'chol imis v'chol dibres. Just like in the beginning of the parsha, we say that there's an essential bond that comes before duty, before responsibility, before commandments. That's what he's saying over here. Only the Eibishter, only Hashem, which is unlimited and has an essential bond with the Yid that precedes all the commandments, will forgive a Jew, a Yid, even when he transgresses the commandments many times. Why? Because of this connection. The Vayikra El Moshe is what enables that it should be v'nislach loi. And even in a situation where this was a person that had a connection la'ashma, he had a connection to things that would cause him to be guilty, but the Jew's connection transcends all these details, even though it's the Eibishter's will, and we connect with the essence, and we override the will. But chas v'sholom, I just want to make clear, it doesn't mean that the will gets pushed aside. It means one day, as the Eibishter has patience, v'le'yidach mimenu nidach. At the end of the day, everyone is following his will because the will is Hashem also. But there's different levels, and tshuva is the mitzvah that proves that even when Hashem has a will, which remains eternal, and is also connected, is Hashem, but still tshuva means that it's not in a square way, it's not in a limited way. Tshuva is the mitzvah that proves the real infinity of Hashem. Connected to Beis Nissen, the Yartzeit Hilula of the Rebbe Rashab, there's a tremendous word of the Rebbe Rashab that can bring you to tears when we talk about Avos Yisrael. L'man achai v'rei adaber lo sholim bach. So this is printed in Sefer HaMarim Kontreisim Chilek Gimel of the Friedrich Rebbe, page Memhei, and it's from a letter of the Friedrich Rebbe where he describes a talk and a walk and a talk that he had with his father, and his father spoke about 8 qualities about thinking Chassidus before davening in Talis and Tefillin. So we're talking about meditation, meditation, which is a spiritual exercise. And we're talking about meditation in Talis and Tefillin, meditation with your mind, surrounded by Tefillin and Talis. So if you want to have an image of a Jew, a holy Jew, there he is, meditating, focusing, concentrating on Hashem, spirituality, surrounded with his Talis and his Tefillin. And the Rebbe Rashab is talking to his son and enumerating 8 qualities of meditating on Chassidus while wearing talis and tefillin. And you must read it yourself. And the Friedrich Rebbe writes these words, und me kum zu, and when you do this you reach, zu ader Herren noyem eliki, you reach through to a consciousness of the pleasantness of divinity, of godliness, a göttliche Süßkeit, a godly sweetness. And he goes on. Anyways, finally, after talking about this for a long, long, long time, imagine we're talking about 8 qualities, and the Rebbe Rashab is describing all 8. And then he finished the final thing he told him. Yosef Yitzchak! He's talking to his son, Yosef Yitzchak. Herr, listen up. Die alle Meiles, was man ist gerechnet in der Minion von Trachten, Chassidus und Talis und Tefillin von Davening. All these aforementioned qualities that we discussed about thinking, meditating on Chassidic concepts, wearing talis and tefillin before davening, hein b'chassidim and hein b'tzadikim, whether we're talking about chassidim or tzadikim. It does alles nicht be'erech. It doesn't come to. It's nothing compared. Legabe the Meile Niflo was the Eibishter Baruch Hu is mezakeh to the awesome quality that Hashem merits a person. If a person acquires a talent and an enjoyment and a pleasure to do a favor for a Yid, till the other person is more precious than himself. And then he goes on to say, because about oneself, a person could always find reasons why he doesn't deserve things. But concerning another person, you always have to look at him in a favorable light. And I would venture to say that based on the Balaturim that we mentioned before, Yen is mer tired by zich. The Balaturim said, Kaveh Yochel. The Torah itself said Moshe's name before Hashem's name. And he says like a person talking to his friend. And we have to learn from Hashem. If Hashem himself says Moshe is more important, that's what the Torah says over here in this week's first pasuk of the Parsha. We have to try to reach that level. It's a very, very tall order. It's not simple. And some of us have to struggle in it. But let us make resolutions. In the words of the Rebbe Rashab, which he told his son about Avos Yisrael. And we know that the greatest present we can give the Rebbe with resolutions concerning Torah is to make resolutions of Avos Yisrael. I'm talking about myself now. I find it always a struggle, no matter how many years I'm practicing it and trying to improve in this area. It still sometimes is difficult to show love at all times and empathy at all times and just be into the other person and be present for him totally. So let us all make achlatas to try to improve in this area. And then, as the Rebbe said many times, if we will practice Avos Yisrael, especially Avos Chinam, this will bring about, we're in the month of Nisan, we will see and bring about the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, take it from Miyad Mamish, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisborich, your man in Melbourne.